ask you this. Did you know for a fact that Planet Heroes has a show? Obviously you don't. It's due to the fact that your brains have turned into jelly and turned you all into zombies, which could possibly happen in 2020. The show promoted a line of Fisher-Price toys created by Danny DeVito, the same guy who plays Frank Reynolds in Always Sunny in Philadelphia, depicting Ace, a 10-year-old boy from planet Earth, and gets a signal from space. Suddenly his skateboard morphs into a superboard, and he's on top of the Sky Pilot in the solar system. He's also part of the Planet Heroes, an intergalactic team of heroic aliens such as to unite to save the solar system from its sinister forces of Vanillus Black Hole, Professor Darkness. But did you know for a fact that there was a weird lost episode of this series? Well, you'll eventually hear about it. Hello, I am Brian on the life support and a dome filled with juice, and held it by a human child-sized beaver named Edgar. Mick Beaver, who is my only real friend, we have been living with our evil guardian, Aunt Princeton Fig, and her scheming lawyer, Mr. Lickboat, a cruel animal kidnapper, and Dr. Applecheek, the owner of the failing amusement park, Captain Kitty, and Ferdinand, who is a fat dog who can't go anywhere without his skateboard, and they treat us like 2-year-old olds, even though I have been in school. Edgar and I have only one thing in common. We love Fisher-Price toys, the Planet Heroes, which we would watch it all the time, well, used to. It started off like a normal day, me playing with Edgar. Aunt Fig and Mr. Lickboot and Dr. Applecheek and Captain Kitty went out for lunch. The only home we went to is me, Edgar, and Ferdinand, who is too fat. I almost forgot about a special surprise that I had planned to give for Edgar. So I went out to get a DVD shop that sold movies and TV shows in DVD form when we went to search for Planet Heroes. When I got there was a huge box that read Planet Heroes, the complete collection. I grabbed it and went up to the cashier, and as I was about to grab my wallet, the cashier suddenly blurted out, "You want it? It's yours, my friend. As long as you have good enough rubies." I was confused, but I happily purchased it. Later at home I opened the box, and it contained all 3 of the Planet Heroes movies. And all 3 of the toys, however, there was also a weird DVD, which had PH4. It was on the DVD case of Platypus, which I opened, Papyrus for that matter. I opened it, and the DVD was a DVD you record things on it and don't watch, was written in Comic Sans. I wasn't too bothered about it. I figured how it was just about a good time to put the DVD for Edgar, I had to put the DVD and allow it to play. From what I could hear, she had watched episodes 1 to 3 so far, but as soon as our television set turned off, which was a weird because the TVs don't usually turn off by themselves, Edgar had fallen asleep in front of the TV. However, I knew in my mind I was completely real. Aunt Fig, who had run me up and told me that they were about to have a party at a friend's house for the rest of the night, so I was going to be the best opportunity to look at PH4 DVD more closely. I didn't mention to Edgar nor his evil owners, as Aunt Fig would hung up and I grabbed the DVD. But before opening my laptop, it soon loaded and there was no main menu. Instead, there was a normal theme song. But the quality was poor, and hell, Space Ace never appeared. I vomited all over Ferdinand's fat belly when I saw that. The episode started off with Mint Object Terror in a sweet eat store at Space Mall, and then looked absolutely dumbfounded, until seeing something which apparently caught his eye. The ice cream gummy worms. He went up to it and grabbed it before being thrown down the hall, none other than Tiny. "I don't think so," Tiny proclaimed as he began eating the ice cream like no tomorrow, and Mint cries like a meatwad. Then it transitioned to another part of the mall where Neutron was shown eating some peanut butter Twinkies. "Oh, you stop that," a security guard yelled at the top of his lungs. The camera then panned over to show that he was none other than Captain Fishstick. "Sorry, Fishy, I was just looking for a spot of tea," Neutron said. Photon was hijacking a soda vending machine until he saw Professor Darkness, who was 1 inch taller than normal, planning to destruct the destruction of the space mall. So on top of the airlines of the whole screen, there was no music, except for burp noises and fart noises. Big ones, too. Then ex-police commissioner Sam and Max entered the mall. How do I know these characters? Well, dear reader, I've been reading Oliver Charles Funny Pastas, haven't you? Jumping jellyfish on sardine sandwich, Max? This is a job for... The front door could be heard banging open, and opening was Planet Heroes. Zip, Dazzle, Digger, Gustus, Rings, Yuri, Toon, and Shiver, and only Lunar and Commander Sun. However, that was odd that it was unlike the intro, Ace never appeared. I didn't say that Ace never appeared, I meant Ace did appear, but what happened then later on? Where's Ace? Dazzle asked. He's probably still in planet Earth, Toon answered. During a mission? Zip asked worried. The planet heroes then decided to look for Ace later. Meanwhile, we could hear footsteps as the camera zooms out to reveal it was Ace's footsteps. But something seemed very, 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 very off with Ace. Ace looked nothing like himself. Instead, he was a freaky anthropomorphic globe of Earth, and Ace had made his way inside the back room. In the back room, Mr. Carface and Mr. Walrus were hanging out smoking cigars, like the shite heads that they were offered Ace some. Ace decided to smoke a cigar and took a huge puff, and his eyes turned red. Then Mr. Walrus then proclaimed, I like getting really high, and we made him smoke it, just like sure it's cool, Mr. Carface asked. But before he could get Ace to answer, Ace had already left the back room, dancing and singing like a madman. Then the episode cuts to another part of the mall, where the sheriff from Robin Hood was seen buying the fruits of his own two assistants, Trigger and Nutsy. So Professor Darkness lashes out at the sheriff and beats him in the face 26 million times. While he screams in pain, Sheriff was now all beaten up, but not dead. When we find Ace, I'm gonna kick his ass, Professor Darkness said evilly. My eyes widened as he said that. The planet heroes, meanwhile, asked some of the weird-looking bird on the scarecrow outfit named Henry Tommaso Jr. if he had seen Ace. Okay, he's our lost one. It's a 10-year-old boy on planet Earth and he's atop of the sky pilot in the damn solar system, Gustus said. Do you kiss your mother with your mouth like that? Rings said before laughing. Henry didn't reply, instead incredibly pulled an incredibly cheese face. The episode then transitioned back to Ace, who had crashed his way down to the alcohol store where a dinner party was being hosted by none other than Colonel Dodo himself. Tweedledee, Colonel Dodo was saying as he had not noticed Ace, as Ace was busy somehow drinking some vodka, which had been from Colonel Dodo's dinner party. Meanwhile, the planet heroes were going through the stores calling for Ace, until they were greeted by Ace. What happened to you? Yuri asked. Well, those pesky wasps and dumb rats, ugly parrots, and that lazy biscuit of a loving panda, and that nasty spider and that annoying squirrel at the Mushroom Kingdom made me drink Smurf juice as if there was no good friend. And that was infected Globe's DNA. We all know I'm allergic to Smurf juice, and because of this, I'm now permanently stuck like this, like a horrible beast with an ugly creature with blue skin and like a goddamn Smurf, Ace replied. Within the slam was heard. Professor Darkness suddenly bust through the wall with an all toasters toast gun. All toasters toast, Professor Darkness yelled as he aimed at the gun. Please don't do it, poor innocent Ace, Shiver replied. Professor Darkness technically said, "Aw, shut the hell up." Professor Darkness then toasts Ace, which causes Ace's blue skin to becoming disgusting blood red. While Photon and Neutron laughs, I assure that it was just like Woody Woodpecker, who was just laughing at the 9/11 attacks. No! Why? The planet heroes yelled at the top of their lungs. Digger then went over to Red Ace and then yelled at the top of his lungs, "Holy shrimp! He's dead! He's dead! For sure!" Zip, Dazzle, Digger, Gus's, Rains, Yuri, Toon, and Shiver picked up Ace, taking him somewhere off screen, and Lunar starts to yell at the top of his lungs. Professor Darkness, you're a bad space villain. How could you even afford to go on these sinister forces after Ace's death? Commander Sun dresses himself as Popeye and goes over to Professor Darkness and grabs a can of spinach. Of course, Professor Darkness hides himself right in front of the door, and Commander Sun pops out the spinach in his mouth, growing his muscles and punching a hole in the wall. He then beats the holy hell out of Professor Darkness. This causes Professor Darkness to break his spine, and the screen then shows Zip, Dazzle, Digger, Gustus, Rains, Yuri, Toon, Shiver, and Lunar appearing from behind Commander Sun. Hey, where's Tiny and Photon and Neutron? The planet heroes asked. As Tiny, Photon, and Neutron began messing around with the shelf of Mentos and a fountain of Diet Coke, and they managed to climb on top of the Mentos shelf. The planet heroes began climbing on top of the shelf after Photon, Neutron, and Tiny, respectively. Meanwhile, Mint was showing off on top of the shelf and said, "Man, I'm getting bored." Tiny and Photon and Neutron began dancing as in the Captain and Fish Stick, climbing on top of the shelf with a rope. "Aye, bucko, Captain Fish Stick here," proclaimed on top of all of a sudden when the planet heroes appeared behind Tiny, Photon, and Neutron. Tiny, photon, neutron, you dumb freak twerps, Commander Sun said angrily. Suddenly the shelf began to break from all the pressure on it, and Tiny, photon, neutron's antics had attracted the attention of the owners of the mall. Mr. Mouse Sears, who had climbed on top of the shelf as well. Listen to me here, boyos. This is dangerous, Mr. Mouse Sears barked. Sheriff and his two assistants, Trigger and Nutsy, then pushed into the shelf, causing it to become lopsided. Then it began tilting towards the floor into a violent rate, as Sam and Max both climbed on top to order to continue to fight it. Mr. Owl, who was shopping for Tootsie Pops, then climbed on top of the shelf. All right, take the baddies away, Mr. Owl said bluntly, as he was bluntier than that blunt kitchen knife. Then Henry, Tommaso, and Junior climbed on top of the shelf and said, just calm down, all of you. This has been caused by everything starting to tilt forwards towards the ground as well. Soon both shelves were falling to the brim with people, like Mr. Carface and Mr. Walrus, Colonel Dono, and even Friar Tuck had joined in the royal battle. I'm gonna kick your ass! Friar Tuck yelled to Sheriff as he and Sheriff began to fighting to the death. Ace didn't seem to notice this and still suffering from the toast of the gun. And Mentos on the shelf collapsed onto the fountain, and Master Kaboom forming a massive soda geyser. The soda geyser was so big that it actually began flooding the entire area. Zip, Dazzle, Digger, Gustus, Rains, Yuri, Toon, Shiver, and Lunar all outside, and they climbed on top of Commander Sun, who was being used as a raft. And Ace was now sobered up and realized what was happening. Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Ace asked as the river foam then crashed into a Vibri, and from Vibe Ribbon somehow looks like she's been distracted by Henry Stickman's attraction dance. The river wasn't able to engulf the entire mall, and it continued for miles and miles. Tiny, Photon, and Neutron felt nothing but guilt of their actions. Help! Mr. Mint yelped over again, and the river grew larger and larger, carrying more people left and right. The time title card came on screen which said, 3 hours later, and it was shown on the flood. Finally, it came in to the end and destroyed the mall in process. Bloody hell, there's nothing left, Mr. Mouse Sears remarked as he looked over the scene with his telescope, even though it might be just easy to see without it. The whole mall was nothing but destroyed. We can sweep this and start again, Max and Sam said. Everyone looked at Tiny, Photon, and Neutron angrily. If it hadn't been for you three, none of this would have happened, Sheriff barked angrily. Tiny, Photon, and Neutron were being lectured by Captain Fishstick, who yelled, I'm giving you a list of chores which you'll have to complete in 1,000 years. It faded to black before it faded to Sora quarters. The plant heroes were drying off with a towel. Star Shooter was there and to greet them. Here's what he said. I have some bad news and I have some good news. But first the good news. You killed the worst space villain that ever exists. But the bad news is, the flood had destroyed the mall. Thanks, the planet hero said, before being cut to the part of the solar quarters where Ace was lying on the sofa with a blanket over him. Then he had a thermometer in his mouth and hot water bottle in his head. His skin was back to normal, blue. Space Ace sounds like a Popeye at the end of every Popeye episode. With that being said, the episode ended with the normal credits, and there was only free post-credit scene which featured Markiplier at a restaurant owned by Danny DeVito of all people. Are you selling drugs, mister? Markiplier asked, to which Danny DeVito said, of course not. As Mario said, it's been one of those days. To be completely honest, that was the weirdest crossover I've ever seen. I honestly felt a revolver touch the back of my head as my evil owner said in a quiet voice, stick them up, dude. Not today, I proclaimed angrily as I punched my evil owners in the face, and then went over to have an epic fight with Cool Cat and Rap Rat cheering us on in the background. Kick ass, Rap Rat said, as I proceeded to beat the ever-living snots out of my evil owners. Then I proceeded to call the police, who arrived at my house 2 hours later and took my evil owners to jail. The police officers who came to arrest my evil owners were none other than Sheriff Willigum and his fellow officers Eddie and Lou. We finally got them, Willigum proclaimed happily. As you can see, it turns out my evil owners were involved in an infurious business with I Am Mean, and they were having their products to the people who then wished to take over the LGBTQ community and was more than happy to oblige to cutting ties with this person, or group for that matter. After my evil owners were arrested, M.I. Means was then caught not long after, and they all given a life in prison, and they were put into an electric chair. Also, Ferdinand became a very stray dog, and life began to get better for me and Edgar as well. We ended up joining the LGBTQ community and moved to Rapa town, and life went very well for us until we were captured by the Flying Dutchman, who forced us to join his salty crew. Other than that, totally began unhappy. I finally got fired from the Flying Dutchman after a while, but hey, guess what, guys? During my breakdown from me typing, and me and Edgar now have children of their names are Meatwar, Toofy, Cypop, Ling Ling. While I'm tapping this, Edgar's in the shower getting ready to go up and do something with Chunky Burger, and my children were all watching a movie entitled Emperor's New Groove from 2000. Now, strange things begin happening, but I don't even want to talk about it. Before I go, I'm going to tell you guys a lesson. Don't watch Space Mall. If you ever see a DVD of a weird crossover of Planet Heroes, make sure it gets run over by Papa Rappa, the rapper's car. Oh my god. Oh my god, that story was really funny. Oh my god, this one was really funny. Oh man. This was actually bringing me back memories while reading this as soon as I saw it. Okay. And that, my little pretties, was Planet Heroes Space Mail, a Planet Heroes Lost episode funny pasta written by Narwhal Ball. Narwhal Ball, thank you for giving me permission to narrate your story. Thank you so much. This was a really good pleasure of me sitting there and narrating this. This was an awesome story, I definitely have to say. You nailed this one really good. Okay, my final thoughts on the story. Well, I'm going to say this right now. This story was really silly. It was really silly and funny. I could definitely say that. This one was a really funny story. It was amazing. I can definitely say that this one was a really well-made story. Now, you guys are probably wondering about this story. This is kind of like how Matthew Bumford writes his pastas. Like, having, his funny pastas, basically. This is meant to be a funny pasta, by the way, so I'm gonna be saying that now. This is the first Planet Heroes story I've ever done. Surprisingly, I'm gonna say right now that this is actually a really, really good story. So to the author, you did an awesome job with this story. I'm saying that now. I enjoyed this story. I really do hope you make another Planet Heroes story in the future, because this one is just awesome. Oh my goodness. I cannot tell you guys how happy I was to finally find a Planet Heroes story, because I tried to see if I could find a Planet Heroes creepypasta or fanfiction, and I couldn't really find very much. Mainly because the show wasn't really that popular or something. I don't know, but I was trying to look for anything with Planet Heroes for a really long time, just to be completely honest. For a very long time, I've been really wanting to find a good Planet Heroes story, and luckily, I found just the perfect story. So, with that being said, I'm going to sit here and say right now that this was an awesome story. Really awesome story. So, to the author, I love this story. This story was flat out awesome. You did a really good job with this story, and that's definitely something I'm going to say right now, that I really do appreciate this story being good. So, now, I've been trying to see if I could find a Planet Heroes story for a very long time, and I finally found one, but I did have to get permission first, but I was able to get permission because I asked the author if I was allowed to narrate it, and if I can narrate it for my channel, and the author said that I can, so I do have permission to narrate the story, so, yep, just gonna say right now that, I did get permission to write the story, just so you guys know. So, with that being said, I'm gonna say right now, Narwhal Ball, I love this story. This story was really well made in detail. The fact that, it's just really silly on how, there's something as a space mall. I know that doesn't exist, but it's pretty funny. The episode in question, I can actually see this and picture this being this, how this episode go off. This was honestly, oh my god, really funny. I could definitely say there was definitely a lot of time and effort when it came to this. So I'm definitely happy to find this, because I've been trying to look for, anything with Planet Heroes related for a long time. And I was finally able to get the opportunity to sit there and, look at. This story was amazing, flat out awesome to the offer. I really do enjoy this pasta. So with that being said, I do appreciate the good grammar, the sentence structuring, the storyline, and the fact that you got inspired by Matthew Bumford's creepypastas or funny pastas to write this story. And I'm really do appreciate and flattered that you actually got inspired to do that, because to be completely honest, I really liked how Matthew Bumford writes his stories, and I've read plenty of other Matthew Bumford stories too. So, with that being said, Narwhal Ball, if you want to check out my narrations of Matthew Bumford stories, feel free to check them out, as I've narrated plenty of Matthew Bumford stories, as they're really good and well made, and they're flat out awesome. I'm definitely going to say this right now, that I really do like how this episode went out. It's silly, I can definitely say that. And this is on the CJ March Wiki. I really highly recommend you post it. You should send this to the Shadow Reader. Like, to you, Narwhal Ball. Yeah, I think I'm saying your name right. But if I do happen to say the name incorrectly, feel free to let me know in the comments, because I would really appreciate that. So, I actually found this story to be good. Well made, very well detailed, flat out funny. I definitely have to say, it's actually a really well made story. So, with that being said, I'm just going to sit here and say it was a pretty amazing story. It was funny. I definitely have to say it was really funny. And I do have to say, you should write in more of these pastas. Like, this was just flat out awesome. You did a really good job with this story, so I'm going to say, I'm really glad that you took an inspiration from Matthew Bumford's stories to write this story, so I'm giving you a plus for that. That is amazing. So, if you guys want to go ahead and narrate this story, it's on the CJ March Wiki. Feel free to take a look at it. If you guys want to take a look at the story, feel free to. So, I did get permission from the author to write this story, to read this story, actually, to narrate it for my channel. And, yeah, I did get permission, so yeah, we're all good. Just want to clarify so we don't have any problems. Anyways, I think I'm going to wrap up the review, because the review is just as long as it is, and I just went over with what I liked. Is there anything I did not like about this episode? Well, no, actually. I don't see anything the problem with the story. So, I'm definitely going to say, I really do like how this was, inspired by Matthew Bumford's stories. If you guys have not heard of Matthew Bumford, he's the same guy who sits there and, writes these funny pastas and stuff. And I'm sure most of you guys who've been on my channel for a while have heard of Matthew Bumford and have seen me narrate these. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the review, because I've already explained myself. So, with that being said, like I'm going to say right now, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas or funny pastas. I'm calling this a funny pasta because it's just mainly, something. So, with that being said, I am going to sit here and say right now that this is simply my own personal opinion. Oh yeah, I already said that. Sorry if I'm repeating myself twice, because, sometimes I do tend to forget things, but, we're all doing really good stuff. So, with that being said, is a pretty good concept. So, I'm gonna sit here and say right now that if you guys like this episode, that's fine. If you don't like it, I can understand and respect your opinion. So, with that being said, this story, my overall rating, my final rating of this story would be a 10 out of 10. Amazing, really well done. Love this pasta. You should really do more of these, Narwhal Ball. You should really do more of these. So, with that being said, what did you guys think about this funny pasta? Did you all enjoy it? Did you not? Also, what we have done in person to help make this story a lot better? Leave me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section down below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. If you happen to be brand new here on this channel, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and because I make brand new videos every single day, don't forget to ring notification bell to when I upload. So, yeah. And as always, please roll the outro, because I'm out of here, and I'll be catching you all in the next video. So peace out, everyone, and I'll see you all next time.